The first time I saw him, I did not feel anything grand. No spark, no fire, nothing the old songs promised a queen should feel. He stood at the edge of my court in a plain gray uniform, hands folded, eyes down, while my nobles buzzed around him like he was furniture that had wandered in by mistake. His name was Elias Voss. He was human, and he was about to become my husband. It was not love that brought us together. It was paper, treaties, borders drawn in ink after a war that had cost my empire 3 moons and half a generation of soldiers. The human compact needed a symbol of peace, and my council decided that symbol should be me, married to one of their own. I did not choose Elias because I wanted him. I chose him because the humans offered him, and because he was quiet enough not to embarrass me in front of my court. That was what I believed anyway. My people, the Illyrian, are not a quiet species. We sing before we fight. We shout when we love. Our warriors compose poetry about their enemies before cutting them down, and our queens are expected to burn brighter than anyone else in the room. So when Elias arrived, saying almost nothing, flinching from attention, keeping his eyes low even when addressing me directly, my court decided he was weak. Some even said the humans had sent me their broken soldier, a man not fit for their own armies, just so they could rid themselves of him quietly. I did not defend him. Not at first. I simply watched. He was strange to live with. He made his own bed, even though servants offered every morning. He ate slowly, savoring small bites like each meal might be his last. He asked questions about my people's customs, not to impress me, but because he genuinely wanted to understand. When I raised my voice, as queens often do, he never raised his back. He would simply wait, calm as still water, until my anger passed like a wave breaking on stone. I began to think my counsel was right. I had married a gentle, harmless man, perhaps even a broken one. I remember one evening, only weeks into our marriage, when I asked him directly why he was so quiet. We were sitting in the garden that overlooked the lower city, its lights spread out like scattered stars. "Where I come from," he said, "loud men don't usually last very long." I laughed, thinking it a joke. He did not laugh with me. He only looked out at the lights, his expression unreadable, and said nothing more. I let the moment pass. I told myself it was nothing. I had no idea then how wrong I was. 6 months into our marriage, my empire hosted a diplomatic gathering on the edge of our territory, a small colony called Threnvale, built along a quiet moon that mined valuable crystal for trade. It was meant to be simple: a tour, a dinner, a handful of speeches about unity and progress. Elias came with me, as he always did, standing a few steps behind, saying little, watching everything. I did not know that Threnvale had drawn unwanted attention. The Kryzek remnant, a scattered but dangerous faction left over from an old war, had been hunting for weaknesses along our borders. They saw a queen visiting an underdefended colony as an opportunity too good to ignore. The attack came at night. I remember the alarms first, a shrieking sound that tore through the quiet colony like something alive. Then the shouting, then the lights flickering, as the colony's shields buckled under strikes from above. My guards moved instantly, forming a circle around me, weapons raised, faces tight with fear they tried to hide. And then I felt a hand close around my wrist. It was Elias. He pulled me sideways, away from a window just as it shattered inward, sending sharp fragments across the room where I had been standing a heartbeat before. I stumbled, disoriented, and looked up at him, expecting to see panic in his eyes. I did not find panic. I found something else. Something still. Something focused. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "Do not let go of my hand." I had never heard him give an order before. I had never seen him move like this either, quick and certain, his body language completely different from the soft, careful man I had shared a home with for 6 months. It was as if a switch had been flipped somewhere deep inside him, turning the quiet diplomat into someone else entirely. We moved through the colony's corridors as chaos spread around us. Kryzek soldiers had breached the lower gates, cutting off the main evacuation route. My guards fought bravely, but they were trained for ceremony, not for this kind of sudden, brutal defense. I heard cries down the hallway. I heard the colony's alarm system counting down the minutes until the shields would fail completely. Elias led me through a side corridor I did not even know existed, moving with a certainty that told me he had studied this building the moment we arrived, quietly, without telling anyone. When two Kryzek soldiers appeared ahead of us, blocking our path, I froze. Elias did not. What happened next stayed with me long after that night ended. He did not shout. He did not hesitate. He moved forward with a calm, deliberate purpose that felt almost unnatural, closing the distance between himself and the two soldiers before either of them could properly react. I could not follow every movement. It happened too quickly, but I remember the strange quiet of it all. No war cries. No wasted motion. Just precise, controlled action, followed by silence, as both soldiers were left unable to continue fighting. He turned back to me, breathing steady, his expression unchanged, as if he had simply finished a chore, rather than defended both our lives. "Come on," he said. "We're not out yet." I followed him in stunned silence, my mind struggling to reconcile the man in front of me with the quiet husband I thought I knew. This was not rage. This was not the wild, glorious fury my own warriors sang about in their battle songs. This was something colder, sharper, almost gentle in its precision, and somehow that made it more unsettling than anything I had witnessed before. We reached the colony's central shelter just as the last of the shields failed overhead, sealing us inside moments before the corridor behind us became impassable. My remaining guards arrived shortly after, wounded but alive, staring at Elias with a mixture of confusion and something close to fear. I sat in the corner of that shelter, watching him check on every person in the room before he even looked at his own injuries. He knelt beside an injured guard, applying pressure to a wound with steady hands, speaking softly, reassuring the young soldier that help was close. His voice had returned to the gentle tone I recognized, as if the calm, dangerous man from moments ago had simply stepped aside to let the quiet husband return. I could not stop staring at him. "You were a soldier," I said, once the room had quieted and reinforcements had finally arrived to secure the colony. It was not a question. Elias looked up at me, his eyes tired but steady. "I was," he said simply. "You never told me. You never asked." I wanted to be angry, but I found I could not summon the feeling. Instead, I felt something closer to shame. I had married this man believing he was harmless, weak even, without ever truly wondering why a healthy young human might be so quiet, so careful, so unwilling to draw attention to himself. I had mistaken restraint for weakness. I had mistaken his silence for emptiness, when in truth, it had been full of something he chose, every day, not to show me. Later that night, once the colony was secured and the wounded were being tended to, I found him sitting alone, outside the shelter, staring up at the stars scattered across the dark sky. I sat beside him without a word, unsure of what to say. "On my homeworld," he said eventually, "there were places where loud men did not survive long enough to grow old. I learned early that quiet was safer. Quiet kept people from noticing you. Quiet kept you alive." "And the way you fought tonight?" I asked carefully. "Is that also something you learned to survive?" He was quiet for a long moment before answering. "I fought because I did not want to lose you," he said. "Everything else, I try to leave behind. I do not enjoy what I can do. I only use it when there is no other choice." I thought about my own people then, about the songs we sang before battle, the pride we took in violence dressed up as art. He carried restraint, a promise to himself, day after day, not to become the thing he was capable of becoming unless someone he loved was in danger. I realized, sitting there under an unfamiliar sky, that I had misjudged him completely. I had married him for peace, expecting nothing more than a quiet companion to satisfy a treaty. Instead, I had married someone who understood peace far better than I did. Because he understood exactly what the alternative cost, and he chose peace anyway, every single day, until the moment he no longer had the choice. When we returned to my homeworld, the whispers in my court changed. No one called him weak anymore. No one questioned why a queen would choose someone so quiet. Instead, they watched him with a new kind of caution, a respect built not on fear alone, but on the understanding that gentleness and strength were not opposites in this man. They were simply two sides of the same devotion. As for me, I stopped seeing our marriage as a treaty sealed in ink. I began to see it as something else entirely, something I had not expected to find in a political arrangement built on convenience and necessity. Elias never spoke of that night again, unless I brought it up first. He returned to his quiet routines, his careful patience, his gentle presence in our home, as if nothing had changed. But I knew better now. I knew what lived beneath that quiet, and I understood, finally, why he kept it hidden so carefully. I am a queen of a warrior species, raised on stories of glory and battle song, taught to believe that strength must always be loud to be real. Yet the strongest being I have ever known chooses silence every day, and only lets his true strength surface when those he loves are threatened. I did not marry a broken man, as my court once believed. I married someone who had already faced the worst version of himself, long before I ever knew him, and had decided, deliberately and permanently, to be gentle instead. That, I have come to understand, takes a kind of courage my own people rarely sing about. But it is, I think, the rarest and most powerful kind there is.